Okay, what's up? We're back. We're streaming. We're back. Trying to get back. Maybe I could finally get back to where I was. Score well above 50 on the puzzle rush, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, let's get started. Let's get started. How do I want to operate today? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Actually, take a sip of coffee. Today, maybe I'll try to be funny. I don't know. Alright, let's start it off. This is level 1. Uh, Here we see that the king is kind of stuck. Can't go nowhere. So queen e8 threatens checkmate because c7's covered. Back rank's covered. Queen e8's forced, and then we follow up with rook e1. Alright, we got a rook on g3. Rook is hanging. Our queen sees the g2 square. We just play queen g2, and it's mate. Alright, hanging queen, hanging back rank, formula for mate. Alright, here, white's trying to do some stuff. Maybe come to h8, do some stuff. So we gotta act quick. Our knight and our queen team up on g2. So that's a formula for mate. So here, opponent has a weak back rank. Why? Because the rooks aren't connected. Bishop's on c8. So hanging rook, if the bishop were anywhere else, like say f5, then rook e8 wouldn't work, but we are exploiting our development advantage with rook e8. And that is mate. Alright, here the queen and the king are lined up. e7, knight's pinned, rook d8. End of story. Alright, so here we have two minor pieces and a rook, as does our opponent. So, we don't need anything super big here. We just want some material gains. So, we have these two pieces lined up, ready to be hit by the e5 pawn. Boom, fork, you're done. Knight h4, we take that. You can have a pawn. And then we can take on c7 and threaten rook d8. Or just win a whole piece. Alright. I think a lot of people will probably be tempted by rook h5, but that is wrong. Rook h5 is wrong. Why? Well, because look at how restricted the king is. We're controlling the 6th rank. We want to keep the king stuck. The more stuck the king is, the closer the king is to mate. So if we keep the rook on h6, we restrict a lot of squares from the king. King can no longer retreat. That's always a good thing. Almost always a good thing. So we just play g4 in the game immediately. We're controlling the 5th rank with our pawn fence. We're controlling the 6th rank with our rook, and we're controlling the 4th rank with our king opposition. So just g4. Alright, queen, bishop, teaming up, a2. Next one. Queen, rook, teaming up, g2. Rook, rook, teaming up to control the files, or the ranks. So we play rook 1 to d6. Alright, so what do we do? Playing f7 seems great. We're just not in time though, because rook c8. So what do? Well, we start pushing d5. We start pushing our other pawn. We play e7, we're forcing e8. We're threatening e8 equals queen, and so we're forcing rook c8 as a response. Because of that, opponent has to play rook c8, and then we can just play d5. If opponent tries to play rook e8 and attack this pawn, then our other pawn is in time to play d6. After that, the rook is paralyzed, is forced to stay on the 8th rank, specifically e8, after which, if the rook stays on e8, then we can just play d7, offer up the e7 pawn as a sacrifice, and then play rook d8 in the game and win the rook back and go up the queen. So just e7, d5, 6, and here's that idea where we can just play d7. Having two pawns on the 7th rank connected to each other is extremely powerful, and we can often afford to sacrifice one of them to allow the promotion of the other. So d7 in this situation. Alright, so here the f4 square is a major hole in the white position. My knight can hop to it immediately, it comes with check, and then that also opens up a diagonal for my queen to start penetrating. So, after knight f4, opponent does not have a lot of options. If the king moves anywhere on the first rank, then we're just going to play queen c1 and end the game. Immediately with checkmate, rook e1 and then queen e1. Only other square for the king to go, g3 and f3. In either of those scenarios, our knight is saved on f4. It's very solid and protected. Then we can just take the bishop on c1, and then the only thing we have to do is look for any opponent's threats. Well, you know, rook h3 might appear as a nasty threat, but with our knight on f4, we're covering rook h3. If rook h3, knight takes h3, king takes h3, and then we just have a queen versus rook and bishop, and our queen is super active on the dark squares in the opponent position. There are holes, and these pieces are doing nothing right now. The bishop seems menacing because it's controlling squares around my king, but there's no way that it can coordinate with the rook to do anything meaningful. So we just play knight f4 and take the bishop. Okay, in this position we notice the weakness on the dark squares. Bishop f6 comes to mind, threatening queen g7 mate. We ask ourselves, can our opponent play anything to control the g7 square? Normally, like having a knight, like a knight on f8 for example, or a knight on f5 can help take the sting out of moves like bishop f6. But in this situation, the opponent doesn't have any knights connected to a circuit that can enter the g7 square in time. So we just play bishop f6 and then ask ourselves, what can our opponent do to forward their own attack, because that's their only option anymore. We see that they don't have any checks. The rook is stuck on f8, so there's not even an idea of queen f8. So we just play bishop f6, knowing that there's nothing the opponent can do to stop queen g7 on the next move. Alright. So, here we have a pinned knight, we have an unprotected rook, and we have a rook on a1 that's hanging that can join the party via rook d1. After rook d1, we essentially force the king over to c8, when we can then take the rook on e8, and the only problem there, a slight hiccup, is the opponent can play knight takes e8 and save their... Nope, they can't even save their position because then we just have rook d8. So, yeah, we just... rook d1. Yeah, so if we take on f6 immediately, then just bishop f6, and after rook d1, then the opponent... rook d1, king c8, and then we take, we're up in exchange, and then the bishop can come block on d8, we're not mating. Whereas in the other line, if we play rook d1 immediately, force king c8, and then take on e8, knight takes e8, and then follow it up with rook d8, that is unstoppable mate. So that line is clearly superior, and therefore we will start with rook to d1. And next puzzle, okay, weak back rank, queen h8. That's it. Weak back rank, queen h8. Okay, sure, there is rook f8 or bishop f8, but then we just play queen takes f8, bishop takes f8, and after rook d1, or rook d8, queen c8, rook c8, that is just unstoppable mate. This is all because black has a back rank that is unattended for. Okay, here we can just come into d7, a very typical formula. Queen c7 check, the king is forced over to b8, and sure, the bishop is guarding the d8 square, but that's why we have two pieces loaded up on the back rank. Opponent's underdeveloped, so their rook is not controlling the back rank like it should be. This is a dysfunctional position for black. queen d8, bishop d8, rook d8, and mate. Okay, so here I've got a bishop that I can put on a3. I really like that. These dark squares are unoccupied by the opponent and not under control by the opponent as well, because there's no opponent just has no convergence on the dark squares. For example, if there was a pawn on b6, then the opponent would have control over the c5 square, because after bishop a3, opponent could play bishop c5, and then there's not really much we can do there. Sure, we could take and then b takes, but then we have nothing. In this position, however, the opponent has like zero control over this dark square diagonal, which means that after bishop a3, king g8 is forced, and then we can just end the game immediately with queen e8. Another back rank motif. Alright, so bishop a6 is very appealing to me. Why? Number one, because it keeps the king on the back rank, our knight's controlling d7, and then it also reveals our rook's control of d7, which could be useful. Very specifically, I like bishop a6, which forces king b8. We're controlling the light squares, the king only has b8, so then we just play knight d7, and that ends the game immediately because we're controlling all the squares around the king, and the king can't go to a8 because the rook's there. Bishop a6 and knight d7. Okay, here we just have the idea of queen e2, king b1, and then takes, queen takes, rook takes on d1, that's mate. Why? Opponent's underdeveloped on the back rank. As you might have noticed already, so many of these solutions are just stemming from the fact that the opponent is just underdeveloped and specifically is weak on the back rank. So that just is a deadly flaw in one's position. It's very common too. Alright. More weak dark squares. We've seen so many puzzles with weak dark squares already. So queen f6, forcing either king h7 or king g8, and doesn't matter if king g8 or king f7, we play queen g7 and mate to follow. So pretty simple. I would love to play knight c3 here. It doesn't really work because after knight takes c3, d takes c3, we hit the queen. So queen's got to move, but then opponent still has control over the b2 square with this knight. We could always take it and then play queen a3, but that just seems a little too abstract to me. I don't know if we'd be able to get away with that. So I'm instead looking for alternatives, like maybe ideas with rook a1. Rook a1 doesn't really seem to do anything either. So let's reinvestigate. Okay, I'm liking knight c3 quite a bit more now. I mean, knight c3, the king is forced to either b2 or c1 if nothing takes on c3. So let's say the king goes to b2. I mean, we can play knight d1 check, rook takes d1, we win a rook. Queen d2, rook d2, takes, and we're still even in material there. We're actually not happy there. So knight c3, king b2, then we would play, we would play rook a2, because our knight and our rook team up on the a2 square. Opponent would be forced to go to c1, after which we could play rook a1, king b2, takes, oh, and then we could play knight d1, takes, hold on, something is off here. If we played knight c3, king a3, then we can just afford to take the knight on c4. Opponent doesn't have any time to take back because then we're unable to play queen a3. So there we go. So knight c3, if king b1, then just bishop c4, and it doesn't matter if it's bc4 or ec4, then we just play queen a3, forcing king, just leading to mate, leading immediately to mate. So opponent has to take on c3. So after knight c3 check, well, besides taking on c3, the only other option is king c1, but king c1 leads to the same thing because we just play bishop c4 and then say d4, then we can play queen a3. The king can't escape via the d2 square because the queen's there, so king is forced to go to b1, and then we just play queen a1 with checkmate. So opponent is forced to take on c3. So after knight c3, we take back with the d pawn hitting the queen. Queen's got to move, say the queen moves to c1. Then we take on c4, dc4, and we probably can sacrifice the rook. If we play rook a1, king a1, and then queen a5, king b2 actually does not work. Oh, but we should just be able to play queen a5 and threaten queen a1 mate, and opponent can't play queen b2 because we're controlling that square with our pawn. And knight f8 still runs into queen a2, or sorry, queen a1. So we play knight c3, takes. Okay, and if queen takes, we can just take back, and then we're already threatening mate with rook a1. Nothing to calculate there. Alright, in this position, I really like d3. Why? Because we unveil a discovery on the unprotected b2 bishop. So now that bishop's hit. Number two, the bishop on e2 is hit. So the only way for white to attempt to save all of their material is by playing bishop takes g7. But after bishop takes g7, we can play de2, taking the bishop, forking the queen, forking the rook. Opponent is essentially forced to play queen takes e2, after which we play king takes g7, and we emerge up a piece. Also in that position, white's piece activity is not very good. Like, there are no forward threats. Like, knight g5 is covered, knight e4 is covered, e5, we just play rook e8 and pressurize that square, and opponent can't really afford to move their f pawn. So we just go up a piece, and we have good central control. So d3 is the move. Alright, so here, rook pins the queen. Not great. So we have to look for okay, so and one idea is just, okay, go ahead and take the rook. Queen takes c2, king takes c2, and then we just play bishop f5. King moves somewhere, and then we snag the queen back. In that position, we're just up a minor piece because we have two bishops and a rook versus our opponent's knight and a rook. Not to mention the monstrosity of pawns we have on the queen side. Like, we're just massively winning in that position. And that's all forced. Like, queen c2, king c2 is the only move. And then after bishop f5, it doesn't matter where the king moves to. Nothing can block either, so the king is forced to move, and then we just play rook a8. And we're just massively ahead. Alright, so there's a pin right here, so I just want to play rook f1. I want to play rook f1 because I want to dislodge the king from control of the e7 square. So in an ideal scenario, we would see something like king g8, and then we can just play queen takes e7. But black's not going to give up that easy. So after rook f1, opponent, another try is to play king e8. do after king e8? Alright, what are other ideas? I mean, bishop h5? Right. Yep. So we play rook f1, which opponent could play bishop f5, but then rook takes f5, and we have a similar scenario as before. Right? So here's the new idea. We play rook f1, and opponent goes to e8. After that, then we play bishop h5, and opponent plays g6. So then you might ask, what's the purpose of bishop h5 if we're just losing time with g6? Well, that's what I thought at first too, but then I noticed that my queen and rook are teaming up on the e1 square, which enables me to now play rook e1, and all of a sudden, the queen is pinned to the opponent's king. D2 fails to just rook e7, or sorry, just queen e7, mate, and the only try for the opponent is bishop e6. Which blocks the pin. But then we just take the bishop because the bishop's actually hanging because the no, the queen is no. What is it? So rook f1, king e7, bishop h5, g6. Oops. Rook e1, bishop e6. Do we just play queen b6, exploiting the pin? If you take, then rook takes. Or we could just play bishop g4. Those both seem like sound ideas. So rook f1 we start with, bishop h5, and then rook e1. Okay, I'm very upset that the puzzle ended there. I would have loved to showcase some of the ideas. Anyway, next puzzle is very easy. Queen e1, rook e1. Alright, so we're getting hit with a check. We have an option of coming here, which is interesting. Rook c8 is double check, but then we just take. We're hitting the rook. We're hitting the bishop. If rook b8, we just take the bishop, rook takes, and then we're just up material. And then any other like rook c5 just fails to knight b6 because it's the bishop that would be executing the check. Rook c8 is the only double check. If rook b7 takes, rook takes, and then just king d7. So yeah, I see nothing wrong with king d8, and we kind of have to play king d8 because our bishop is blocked from the center from this e5 pawn, and our knight is not in time to be active and team up with the rook just yet, which gives our opponent time to make a queen, and then we lose. So we have to play king d8, and there's nothing wrong with king d8. Right, so yeah, rook b7, we just take, and then we take the d7 pawn, and then we're just up a large chunk of material. So what strikes me about this position is this diagonal is weak, and this rook is undefended. Oh wait, there's just d4 is also just hanging. That's just making one. All right, it's got to be h4. h4. H4 is like the only move. Yeah, H4 just wins because H4, king takes H4 is forced, and then we play a rook H8. Opponent has no choice but to go back to G3, and then we just play rook H3, which is mate, because the king can't go back to G2. Oh, wait, we just... Queen G8. All of this over here is a distraction. This is all a distraction. I think we just... Rook G8 and ladder mate pattern set up. My queen is free to move, and there's nothing that can clog up the 8th rank, so Queen G8 is just mate. Black to move here. I don't see why we don't take. Like Queen G3 doesn't look very scary. And then just like we come here, and then our king is going to escape. So I don't see anything wrong with taking right here. And we go to F6, and we're gonna escape somehow. There are plenty of routes to escape. Alright, so black to move. This king is rather weak. I'm just inclined to play rook c1 because our bishop is controlling a5. And even if rook a5, then like basically rook c1 just threatens like what I believe to be an unstoppable mate. The only hindrance to that, I think, is bishop c6, but then I just take the bishop, and I'm still controlling a5, and I can just rinse and repeat. I can play rook c1 again and threaten this. Well, I guess it's not a threat because now king b5. No, it still is a threat because then we just play rook a5, skewer the king and the rook, win the rook. That's just massively ahead in material. So yeah, I just really like the look of rook c1. There is rook g2, but then just king f1, and you kind of have nothing. You could play rook a2. So then maybe instead I'll just play rook c2 because I threaten the same thing and I stop the idea of rook g2. Yeah, so okay, this is a really interesting. This is a great puzzle because rook c1 is just like a very tempting, intuitive move. But then you start to look at your opponent's ideas and you realize that rook c1 is actually not going to work because of just rook g2, king f1, and then rook a2. And sure, the opponent's rook is passive, but your whole idea is stopped. So then we just ask ourselves, can we make a small improvement on the same idea? And then rook c2 presents itself. It just completely stops rook g2 and threatens all the same rook a2. So this is certainly the move. There's nothing the opponent can do to reach the a2 square in time. And bishop c6 is still met with rook takes c6, and it might even be able to be met with rook a2, king b5, and bishop a5 with the same skewer idea. So there's multiple ways to win in that position, but it all starts with rook c2. Whoa, whoa. King f2? Unless there's king f2, which forces the bishop to find a home. Bishop e4, and then rook c1. Whoa, whoa. This is crazy. Is it because of rook a5 takes? No, if rook a5, then just bishop a2. What? Or rook a2. Rook a2. Oh, is it rook g2 takes, bishop takes? Oh my god, stalemate trap. Oh my god. Stalemate trap. If we play rook c2, then the opponent still plays rook g2, and after rook g2, bishop g2, king g2, it is a stalemate. The white king has nowhere to go. It is a stalemate. We have stalemated the opponent. So rook c2 actually fails. So instead, rook c1. No, instead we have to play king f2. So this is like yet another iteration of the same idea. How can we keep the idea working? And I think the solution is king f2. Because we hit the bishop. If rook g2, then we just take the bishop and we're clearly winning. If bishop g2, then we can just play rook c1. Wow. Whoa. Whoa. Oh my god. I still like rook c2 or rook c1. Or sorry, no. Wait, yeah, so then if we're thinking about king f2, then it's like, are we actually going to mate? King f2, bishop e4. And then we have to play rook c1, but then just rook g2, king e3, rook a2 takes, and then, oh, we still get bullied with the stalemate trap. We just have to take the rook. Wow. Wow, what a blind spot. Wow. So check this out. That's a stalemate. And then rook c1 falls to rook g2 and rook a2. And king f2 is another stalemate trap because I just keep getting bullied by the rook. I can't ever take. So it's a draw. I can't ever take. Great, incredible stuff. But it's a hanging piece, it ended up being a hanging piece.